Good morning, everybody. This is Jim Feist in Las Vegas, and I'm joined again by Hank Goldberg out of sunny South Florida. Hank, you had an exceptionally strange weekend with your plays. I mean, I have to tell you, nobody could imagine that you had 5 plays in the contest, and 3 of them ended up as a push. That's absolutely remarkable. Now, no one did any better. I mean, in the contest, you still get 2.5 points, which is excellent, out of a possible 5, even when you have 3 pushes. And so it's unbelievable. But you're still very much in contention. Lost no ground, probably gained some ground, and it was a strange.
Well, I'll tell you something. It was a very disappointing result for me. The Pittsburgh game in particular. With 4 minutes to go, they had a 10-point lead, and I think they were 2 scores ahead. Guy drops an interception that would have made the difference in the game. So, that was tough to beat. I didn't lose the game because of the rule. I lost the game because. And you know what? I'm glad they didn't go overtime because I probably would have lost in overtime anyway. It was kind of a weird play that they ran, throwing into that traffic on the 3rd down play. You should have thrown the ball to the outside. Roethlisberger, fat face, blew the game at the end. But and he was having a real good game earlier. Juju made the big play, and he just got caught, on the 10-yard line. And, Ben left the timeout up, on the board. And, I agree that he didn't have to spike the ball, but, he made a bad call on the 3rd down. It was a bad decision to throw the ball in the middle of the field because that's where the defense was. They were lined up, to stop the inside play. It was a bad read on his part. And it was, something Jim Nance didn't know the rule. He said it was, he was saying that it was a touchdown. But I think Romo knew the rule, and Jim Nance did not. So that's why everybody misunderstood what happened on the play. And the rule is very simple, actually. If you're running the ball, all you have to do is cross the plane, and once you cross the plane in the end zone, if the ball comes loose once you cross the plane as a running back, it's a score. But if you're catching a pass, you've got to have control of the ball, and if it moves, the ball moves when it hits the ground, it's an incomplete pass. That's the rule. It's a little confusing. I guess it was confusing to Jim Nance, but the people who understood the rule, Romo knew the rule right away.
Yeah, well, Romo's done a great job as an analyst, and I think the rule is stupid, and that's my opinion. And the ball crosses the plane, it's a touchdown whether you're a runner or passer or receiver. But anyway, be that as it may.
If it was on the field of play, it definitely would have been an incomplete pass.
Yeah, it would have been. Well, it could have been a completed pass, a fumble, and recovered. That's also a possibility.
Oh, it would have been an incomplete pass because he didn't have control of the ball.
Oh, wow. Well, I'm gonna watch basketball from now on. I know those rules. They make more sense.
Well, I'll send you a rule book.
I don't want it. I'll tell you what, if I got the rule book, I'd burn it, which is what they should do. They should burn it. But anyway, we've got a game tonight. It's an important game for Atlanta to keep pace with the Saints, who, by the way, are not playing all that well lately, and the Carolina Panthers, who are playing very well lately.
Well, the Saints came back yesterday, and they got their running back healthy again. and so they won easily. They didn't have to produce a lot in that game against the Jets, and they kind of took their foot off the gas in the second half. And we'll see what happens next week. I think it's a very interesting game when Atlanta plays the Saints down there, and I think the Saints will rise to the occasion because they will have their running back available, and he's a key guy against the Atlanta defense, which doesn't defend the run all that well. So, but tonight Atlanta, their second running back is out, but they're playing against a team whose the top defensive lineman is hurt. They've got a lot of injuries on the defensive side of the ball, and the quarterback Winston is having a terrible year, and I think they've only covered. I don't think they've covered more than 2 or 3 games the whole season.
They've been pretty bad. There's no question about that. They've been absolutely awful. Speaking of tonight, Atlanta opened a 4-point favorite at 47.5 total, and I'm starting to see a lot of 7s out there right now, Hank. Atlanta -6 or 7, and the 6.
I gave 6 on the game yesterday.
Well, that's a good number compared to what it is today. Of course, Atlanta has that big game with the Saints next week. Tampa, of course, is way out of it, and so this is an important game. I don't know who Atlanta plays the week after, but it'll be interesting. I'll have to look that up. Pretty much, there's a lot of games where absolutely the games are meaningless at this point. So it depends on how you approach games like Chicago and Cleveland. And Chicago's a 7-point favorite in that game.
Well, Cleveland did what I expected them to do yesterday. I actually made a bet on Baltimore in that game. I thought that Cleveland was just at the end of the road, and they just collapsed eventually, and that was, I thought, fairly predictable. But the question is Cleveland going to win the game before the season's over with? But who cares?
Probably the only people that care are some of the players on the team who don't like to be embarrassed with that handle. But like I said, next week Atlanta's at New Orleans, and the early line on that game at the moment, right now, New Orleans is a 5.5-point favorite in that one.
I'll tell you, I got a pretty good tip on the Dolphins from the former coach who coached in Chicago, who told me that when he had the quarterback there, he was 7-1 in prime time, and then the next week he would lay an egg, and that happened. He was awful yesterday.
You're talking about
and
Cutler.
Buffalo just crushed Miami. Cutler had a terrible game.
Yeah, well, he's that's what made what happened against New England so much of a shock. I mean, he played so well. Like you said, primetime games he gets up for, he focuses, he plays well. But it's that's who he is, and he's a retired guy. Came back, got $10 million. Now I understand he wants to play more.
Yeah, well, I think he thinks that the performance against New England might make him a valuable commodity next year. I wouldn't pay him.
Well, I wouldn't have paid him coming into this year, but that's me. How about that Rams performance against the Seahawks? I guess the Seahawks just ran out of gas with all the injuries they've had this year, and the Rams are pretty damn good.
On the CBS show that I do on Sunday morning, I gave out a key stat, and that was that if you give when their running back hits the ball, touches the ball 23 times in the game, they're 7-0. When he doesn't, they're 2-4. And notice how many times they gave him the ball.
How many times?
Well, they gave him the ball 5 times out of the first 7 plays, and he was running all over Seattle. And he wound up with a huge day statistically. And I was counting the number of touches that he had, and he got the number for sure.
Now they're going to visit. I mean, they have to keep. I mean, they just can't mail it in because they won that game. They can't lose the next 2 games and put themselves in jeopardy. But they're a 6.5, 7-point favorite on the road at Tennessee, and Tennessee just continues to not look good. They just don't seem to get it done. Now the Rams coming off that big Seattle game, that may not be the best spot for them, cross-country trip, etc.
For the Rams?
Yeah, it's a tough spot. You play Seattle and then you go down to Tennessee, completely across the country. That's a tough spot right there, physically.
Tennessee is not a good football team right now. I'll tell you something. They played against a San Francisco team that could not pressure the quarterback whatsoever. He stood there like a statue and played catch all day long because San Francisco has no pass rush. And yet, Tennessee had no answer defensively for Garoppolo. And so, San Francisco won the game. And Tennessee right now is in a tough spot. So, they need a win badly. They're not going to make the playoffs.
Yes, that's absolutely true. How about the Chargers in Kansas City? So many people loved the Chargers last week, and Kansas City just gave them a whooping.
Let me tell you something. I would not, if I had a vote for the Hall of Fame, I would not vote Phillip Rivers in. Every time, for all the great games he has, when it's on the line, he never produces. He had a bad game when it counts the most. Through 3 picks, he did not look good. All he does is whine when it counts. And maybe he should have a vineyard someday. I would buy Phillip Rivers wine. But he stunk up the joint. And it was it was kind of predictable. Kansas City, I think I said a couple of weeks ago that I thought Kansas City was going to win out and win that division.
That sure looks that way. I mean, they played well. Now, Rivers...
Well, I'll tell you where they really improved is to play in their secondary. And they had, 3 picks, like I said, against Rivers. And, they had pressure on them, and they pretty much stopped the one difficulty they had was stopping the Charger running game a little bit. But other than that, the defense performed very well. Now they got the Dolphins this week. They should beat the Dolphins with no problem.
Yeah, they're a 10 or 11-point favorite in that game. Early line. The Giants put up a pretty good effort yesterday against Philadelphia.
Well, Philadelphia, that was an interesting game to me. I watched that game, and I had actually bet the game and took Philadelphia, and I bought a half a point and gave 7. But I was rooting for Philadelphia to not cover because I thought for the contest it would be best for me if the Giants covered. And so I was happy with the result because I think the whole world was on Philadelphia in the game, as far as the contest was concerned. So that helped me not lose ground.
It was clearly Eli's best game of the year, over 400 yards passing. And Philadelphia's defense absolutely could not stop him on those short crossing.
Yeah, he had one other game, I think, that was pretty decent earlier in the year. But other than that, that equaled it. And you know, they also defensively they did just enough. You know, the one thing that they did was, you know, Foles. I mean, the difference between Foles and Wentz is that Foles is a dink and dunk guy, and he doesn't extend plays and can't throw the ball that far downfield with you know, consistency. So he's a little bit of a different type of quarterback, and a little bit. I think a good defense might give him trouble.
You know, I just sum it up that Foles is a good quarterback. He's a very good backup, but Wentz is a special player, MVP type of player, and it's really a shame they lost him because overall Philadelphia looks like one of the better teams in football and could easily win it all. I don't know if they can do that with Foles, but they could have with Wentz.
I'll tell you, Minnesota's very good right now. And I'll tell you, Green Bay, I don't know that I would play Rodgers this week. But they go against Minnesota, and to expose him against that Minnesota defense, I think you might be risking another injury. Minnesota's playing very well right now.
I don't think Rodgers was right yesterday. He looked like he might have been a little bit sore or hurt, and he wasn't sharp. And there's no reason. They're not going to go anywhere. I mean, even if they got into the playoffs, they're one and done. They're not that solid a football team. And Minnesota's a monster right now. No, I agree with you, Hank. They should sit him.
I'll tell you, he got a head injury at one point. He was shaking the cobwebs out, and they didn't examine him. I was shocked to see that. They left him in the game, and he was a little wobbly there. And you know, he threw a couple of passes that indicated that he didn't know where he was, and they never examined him.
Yeah, I did notice that part of the game. Yes, it was. I thought that they should have sat him down and looked at him, but they didn't. There's a lot. Most of the games this coming week. I mean, Cincinnati looks like they've quit on the season. They absolutely have looked horrible.
Coach is done.
Well, now he's saying this morning. He's saying he's not done.
Well, according to reports, more than one reporter said that he has agreed on to depart at the end of the regular season.
Well, he should. He should depart. Well, that is an interesting game. Detroit is still in the mix for a playoff spot, and they open 3 at Cincinnati this coming week. The game is up to 4.5 or 5. I mean, Cincinnati just looks like they have not even, they're not even playing anymore. The last 2 weeks, it's just they haven't showed up at all.
Well, I made a mistake taking Chicago against Detroit. Detroit just beat teams that don't have a 500 veteran record. And those are teams they beat.
Well, they're running into one again this week in Detroit. Detroit definitely is the more solid football team. They have a chance. They have a chance at the playoffs. It may not be a great one, but they have a chance. But you mentioned it when we were offline. The Baltimore Ravens are playing about as good as anybody in the league right now, and they play on Saturday. And they are a 13.5 or 14-point favorite over Indianapolis.
Well, Indianapolis is pretty bad, and defensively they just can't stop anybody. And Baltimore is, defensively they couldn't stop, Pittsburgh, but other than that, they went up against a red-hot fat face. against Pittsburgh, but other than that, the defense is playing pretty well right now. And they've got a running game, you know, and they'll crush Baltimore. They'll crush the Colts. Not the Baltimore Colts. They're Baltimore.
These teams, they both shared the last name of Colts at one time. One game that is not yet officially on the board, but there's a soft line out there. Carolina, who's right now, Carolina and Cam Newton are playing really well, and they're going to face Tampa Bay. Tampa, of course, plays tonight, but they're going to face Tampa Bay, and they're going to be a 9 or 10 point favorite over Tampa. And Carolina and Cam Newton are playing extremely well, and they could end up winning this division. They are one of the 3 teams fighting for that spot. And this is a big, potentially big game for them.
Yeah, I came out okay with Carolina winning because I had them over nine wins, and so they got the win I needed for the season. So they're in a pretty good spot. Their defense is playing extremely well right now, and I'll tell you something. Olsen had a heck of a game against the Green Bay defense. Green Bay had no answer for him whatsoever. The Green Bay defense is atrocious right now. And, you know, I think any team can move the ball against Green Bay's defense.
Yeah. Hank, we've got a good week ahead of us. We've got a lot of college basketball, got pro basketball. We've got bowl games. Bowl games are really, they started off real well for me, and we've got a lot of good ones coming up this week. So it's going to be a good week.
I'm 3 for 3 on bowl games so far. So, I like FAU because that coach, he likes to run it up. He's auditioning every game.
He sure is. That's for sure.
They call it the lane train down here.
Ah.
Hop aboard the lane train.
Yeah, and where will he be next? He's always, like you said.
I don't know. I guess he's going to stay here another year, but at FAU. But I'm sure that he's going to land a big job after one more year. I'll tell you, between him and Butch Davis, they've done a great job with FIU and FAU. So
that's true.
It's been a good year for college football in South Florida.
You're right. Everybody, just go to JimFeist.com. You can get Hank's picks. We all know how red hot he's been. I've been doing very well. Go to JimFeist.com and check us out. You won't be sorry that you did. Thanks again, Hank.
Yeah,
I
that's
appreciate
right.
it.
The bowl games, I forgot. I was 3 for 3 on bowls over the weekend. So, they weren't pushes. I mean, they were 3 for 3 wins.
Well, yes, you perfect 3-0 record there. And I started out, I had one bowl game. I had Boise, and that was an easy winner. I have quite a few up now. I think I have 6 or 7 bowl games up right now online. So, JimFeist.com.
I had Middle Tennessee, Jim. That was a good one.
Damn, that was very good. Excellent call. All right, guys, we'll talk to you again. We'll see you again on Wednesday. Thank you.